Welcome to the Shots Pod, where we discuss all things Aldershot Town. Welcome to this latest episode with me, Liam Flint, joined as ever by my dad, Howard Flint. And for the second time this season, we've got him again off the bench. You can never have too much of Rob Worrell. So Rob's with us once again, of course, is the Shots matchday commentator. Rob, I know you've been travelling a lot for these away games recently. How are you holding up?
Yeah, okay. It was a long drive on Saturday, a really long drive, and unusually actually on my own. So Big Tone sometimes comes, one of my lads perhaps some kind of time, but it was literally on my own. And it was a long journey home, that's for sure, on Saturday. But it's all part and parcel of what we do and why we do it.
This is it. Yeah, if you want to be famous like Rob Worrell, you've got to get on the motorway.
No, I mean,
head up to Hart.
To be honest with you, I may have had another role to do as well on the day, but nothing's changed in 50 years in making a trip like that. You know, as a fan, the fan inside you never leaves, even though you have to put a little bit of a shell around that fan and maybe try to hide your disappointment or tone down your excitement sometimes, But no, I mean, Howard will tell you. Howard and I have probably supported Aldershot within 10 years of each other, 50, 60 years, however long we've been on this planet and got dragged down to the wreck, so that doesn't change. But do perhaps learn, and the last 5 years have helped me to cope with defeats and with not letting it ruin the rest of my weekend.
So, Dad, you weren't up on the motorway to Hartlepool, but you had to suffer through the updates and watching the highlights. How did you find that?
Well, it was a painful experience, I think. I had to listen to BBC Radio Surrey and this chap, Rob Worrell, who, I don't know what he was taking, but, he obviously needs help. But no, I think really painful in terms of obviously having, a large percentage of the game in terms of possession. And, I thought the post-match comments were very interesting in terms of, you can have all the possession in the world, can't you? But you have to convert it into chances and then goals. And we didn't. So, disappointing, I think. What have we got? 3 games to go. It's not over, but as lots of people have said, it's no longer in our hands.
Yeah, sadly so. And I think that's the tricky thing, Rob. I know you've spoken to us before this about the fact that we've not played badly the last few games. Look at it from the outset, no win in 5, dropped out the playoffs for the first time in months. But yeah, you're quite passionate, aren't you, about us keeping perspective. It's not like we've thrown the towel in. We've not been awful. The pressure's not got to us. We've had a couple of really good Oppo goalkeepers just have worldies. We've had bags of chances. Going up to Hartlepool at the best of times is not easy, is it? So there are some circumstances to think about.
Yeah, loads. I mean, I call it as I see it. I'm not overly optimistic. I'm not overly pessimistic. I described the game on Saturday to the listeners that weren't there exactly as it was. Aldershot had control of the ball for the vast majority of the game. They all looked lively. They all looked up for it. There was no slackers, no shirkers. Nobody had given up the ghost at all. We were very, very unlucky not to score on the day, particularly in the opening 10 minutes of the second half, where we had 4 efforts on goal, and incredibly, 3 of them were Stokes against Jamieson, the keeper. And there were some very deft attempts at finishes from Josh Stokes, 2 of which were very awkward for Jamieson to deal with, but he dealt with well. And actually, we were exploiting at that point not just a lot of the ball, but Kean Harry's beautifully weighted ball over the top, just knowing that the wind would just grab it and nip it, and Stokes making the right moves. All the moves was there, all the attitude was there, the togetherness, the support on the terraces was fantastic. But the ball wouldn't go in the net. And when the longer it goes, the more desperate you get. You are gonna leave the back. This isn't a Tommy's approach thing. We were solid throughout. And Ryan Glover had a difficult moment. I mean, he's been superb. He's had his best ever season for us. He went to clear where he thought the ball was. He went to put his foot through it to clear it out the area. And then that little bit of quick feet from Disarue, he's got into the right place. Maybe just shifted the ball and Glover's caught him. And you could see from Ryan's reaction, it wasn't one he could argue against it. Ironically, I don't know if you remember this, Howard, or you were there, but 5 or 6 seasons ago, we were away up at Hartlepool. We had a debutant that day. and he tried to swing through to clear the ball in the penalty area and caught a player and gave a penalty as well. It was like deja vu, you know. It wasn't our day, and that was on the back of it not being our day against Dorking. Performance-wise, anybody that was there will know the performances were more than good enough to win both games. But some poor finishing, some poor decision-making, and some brilliant goalkeeping, ultimately with a difference.
That's now 2 games in a row where the opposition keeper has saved their best of the season for us, especially. And Rob's had the privilege to commentate agonisingly on all of that. And I think, Dad, in our end of season predictions, you had Hartlepool to lose that. We were going to beat them, weren't we, according to you?
Yeah, I did. I was confident that actually, I mean, they're in transition, aren't they? You know, Kevin Phillips has gone in there and obviously has stirred the pot a bit. But isn't it interesting who he's brought in? You know, he's brought in 2 very, very experienced defenders, central defender, what Rob and I would call centre halves, who you know, head the ball, kick the man if necessary. You know, Luke Waterfall has been round the block, so. It's very interesting. He's strengthened very, very well, I think. Those are 2 good players. And we just came up against exactly what he's done, which is his defence is improved. Penalty's a penalty. And then the second goal, I think, you know, it was all over anyway, probably. We might have broken away and got a point. But I think in our hearts, we thought, yeah, the 3 points have gone. So, yeah, I did think we'd win. And actually, if the game had turned out to be a shots win, I think it would have been justice, probably, in the sense of, you know, the possession. But they took their 2 chances and we didn't. So, yeah, I think it's a bit of a blow. And obviously Gateshead, I said to you earlier in the week, Liam, you know, I think Gateshead could be either, you know, they put it behind them, the pressure's off, it's no longer in our hands, and Gateshead, we just go for it. Or it's the terminal game. And we know then that it's not going to happen for us. So I think, you know, Gateshead's game is going to be really interesting to see how we perform.
Just one additional point, really, post the match, really. The journey home, I'd kind of got it in perspective. I thought, you know, it's very unlucky, two games running. But Oldham had failed to beat Rochdale. They are not mathematically, but realistically dropping out of that race for that last position now, and Halifax hadn't been great in the last 2 matches. So I listened to the commentary of the Kidderminster against Halifax match, and it just showed the strengths of Halifax, because that game began all the positivity for Kidderminster in the first half after the 4-1 win at Chesterfield. Some really close moments for them, and I thought, you know what, we could be okay here. Halifax may draw 0-0. They may get beaten here. And then literally I took a phone call. I was on the phone for about 15 minutes and went back to it. And it was 1-0 to 1-0 to Halifax. And then they got a second, didn't they? And I think it was the brutal reality was I could live with what had happened to us. It was hard to take that, you know, listening to another team, you know, perhaps being dominated by the opposition and losing, you know, and then winning that 2-0 as well. That's just a hard luck story. We've got to get our own, you know, points, our own goals. But I think that was the moment driving back in the second half of the journey that I thought to myself, maybe we're not going to make these playoffs.
And we'll end it there. Thanks, Rob, for your for imparting your wisdom.
Yeah. Oh, no, please don't end it on maybe we're not going to make the playoffs. Oh, Jesus. Oh.
Yeah.
Can't we finish on a positive? Can't we just...
Liam, I think you need to send that check to Rob now, and then that's it. It's finished. We're done.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's how I felt then. Obviously, we've had a couple of days since, haven't we? And I thought you were going to come to touch on, and I thought that would tee you up to sort of say, well, what do you think, Dad? Is it over or whatever? And then maybe come back to me one more time. But I don't know if we're tight for time. It's up to you.
Yeah.
No. But that was my very sarcastic joke that we should just finish now with 10 minutes gone.
I thought this is a bit sudden. I've rushed around all day for 10 minutes. Sorry. You got me there. You got me.
That's all right. I threw you there, Rob, deliberately.
It's our weird family sense of humour, Rob.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. You knew, didn't you? You knew what he was at. I don't know him well enough. Sorry.
Yeah. We stitched you up there, Rob. Stitched you up.
That's all right.
The shortest podcast in history and the most depressing as well. I will come to you, Dad. I will do as Rob tells me to do. We've spoken about this for days, Dad, in that all the other teams around us seem to really hit form at the moment. And so I remember looking a few weeks ago, Altrincham were dropping, felt like Barnet were losing. And all of a sudden it really feels like everybody now, even Halifax, are winning. And Shot seem to be the only team in the top 9 that aren't winning, even to the point where you look 10th, 11th, and you think, could the teams down there actually catch us? Could Rochdale come up? Could Hartlepool get somewhere near us? So the hard luck story only goes so far, doesn't it? And that lots of fans think, well, it's not good enough. We've scored 2 goals in 5 games. Josh Stokes has not scored. We've got defensive howlers at the back. Our midfield's getting overrun, whatever they want to say, and jump on the negative bandwagon. But yeah, how would you sum it up, Dad, in that we are in a difficult patch, everyone else seems to be winning, but as Rob says, we need to start looking after ourselves?
Yeah, we do. And actually, every team has tough patches, don't they? We've been around long enough to know that every team, Manchester City, Liverpool, no one is exempt from a bad spell. And our bad spell, unfortunately, happens to be in these final 8-9 games. So it's tough to happen now. Altrincham lost 5 on the bounce, didn't they? After Christmas, and it all looked over, but they've turned that around. No, the performance against Dorking was really, really good. It was a typical Aldershot. We were open and we did give chances to Dorking, but earlier in the season, I think I reflected on it. Earlier in the season, everything we were hitting seemed to be either going in or we didn't worry about it. Whereas now, I think the last 4 performances, it's just not gone for us. We just not going in. So I think we're in that period where Aldershot have got to keep the faith. Really, they've got to keep playing the way that they can, and see what happens. And I think it's Halifax or Aldershot in that final place. If Southend had not had their deduction, they'd actually be above both of us, Halifax and Aldershot, and they would be in the mix as well.
We wouldn't be going through all this agony, would we?
No, we'd be saying off with them, the Essex boys. But no, I think it's Halifax or Aldershot, and it's about what we do in these last 3 games. And 9 points would put a lot of pressure on Halifax, wouldn't it? They don't play till Wednesday of this week coming, so they have a game against Oldham the day after Shots play Gateshead. If Aldershot could get a win, put pressure on Halifax, who knows? And Oldham are not an easy side to play against, as we know. They've got some good players. And Halifax have got to play against Barnet as well. They've got a home fixture against Barnet. I'd fancy Barnet to beat them. He could easily beat them, I think. Halifax are workmanlike, aren't they? They're really solid. They're not very expansive. They're not very exciting, but they get the job done quite often. And we're not like that. And I'm glad, actually. I'm really glad.
Yeah, we're much better to watch than that.
What
would you say in response, Rob? Do you predict, obviously Dad's saying 9 points there, bearing in mind Halifax got 2 games at home, we've got only 1 at home. Can you see a scenario where we do put pressure on them?
One of the factors in the equation, whether you like it or not, is Halifax's home pitch is in a desperate state. I was chatting to Luke Walsh, who does a football podcast within the last 24 hours. He's not confident that game will go ahead on Wednesday. At some point, and it may very well be in the next 24 hours, Halifax may have to make a few calls and they may have to find somewhere else to play their games because we're running out of time. But coming back to Aldershot, how can we affect? The best thing we can do is pick up 5, 6, 7, 9, if possible, points and ask the question. There's been lots of twists in this playoff battle. And right now we find ourselves in a position where we need to get A, our own game right, and B, we probably need a twist or a turn in another direction. But there's time for that. There's 3 games left. I've got the last 5 games in clear perspective in my head. Anybody outside looking in will say Aldershot have blown up, Aldershot haven't got the experience, Aldershot are tired, Aldershot are not together, Aldershot are, can't do this or whatever. In those 5 games, they've played really, really well for me against Solihull, against Dorking and against Hartlepool. And somehow I've only came out with 2 points out of those 9. no excuses. York and Maidenhead, not good enough. Had they kept up the home form, we probably wouldn't even be talking about it, would we? Because we'd have picked up 7 or 9 points and we'd still be right where we were, 5th or 6th. So, we can't predict it. It's a mug's game predicting in this division, or in any division really of football, but seemingly particularly this one. We go to Gateshead tomorrow night. That's the next game. That's the biggest game, as Tommy would say. And who knows? It'd be interesting to see how they approach it, because we were fortunate to get a draw at home to Gateshead. They were outstanding that day. Maybe we go for the basketball match and see who can score the most, or maybe we try and be patient and compact and hit them on the break. I don't know. That's down to Tommy and the management team. But hopefully, however they play, things go their way. I wouldn't mind a poor performance and a win. Would you, Howard?
No. No, definitely not. And, if you were choosing teams, Rob, you wouldn't want to play Gateshead, would you? If you were saying, let's pick anybody to play away, you wouldn't really pick Gateshead.
No, I think we know that we have to be at the top of our game to get anything against Gateshead. The management team wouldn't look at it this way, but as fans, we can. Might there be a tiny little bit of after the Lord Mayor show for Gateshead tomorrow night? Let's hope so. They've just made Wembley. They went there last year. They're going to have another pop at the FA Trophy. And they've got a busy schedule. They may have to do a little bit of rotation if they're able to. They don't have the biggest squad. They don't have the biggest budget. They are completely there on merit. We all admire them. And I'd go as far as to say, as on their day, they are the best team in the division. And of course, their points total won't tell you that. Chesterfield have won it by 20 points. But Chesterfield have a huge squad to pick from. Chesterfield can rotate their team by 4 or 5 players every week, and they did so. Gateshead, for me, are the team that Aldershot are probably 75-80% of the way of becoming.
Yeah, that's interesting. For me, it just doesn't feel done. And I know, as you've alluded to, Rob, lots of fans seem to have struck us off and said, right, that's it, it's done. And we have blown it, which of course is classic, the fickle nature of the football fan, isn't it? Especially when people react straight after a game. But it does feel like, to me, that we have so much talent in that squad. We've been so good for so long. In my mind, I can't imagine us playing poorly for another week and a half. When you think of, our strike force up front, we've got a solid defence. I think something's got to happen, right? Josh Stokes is going to have a great game. Tolaj is going to have a good game. I just can't see it petering out and Tommy allowing it to just be 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, we're done. Thanks very much. Do you know what I mean? It feels like we're going to have a little bit of reaction at some point.
Totally. I saw a reaction in Josh Stokes on Saturday up at Hartlepool. I thought he had a really good game. My co-commentator, Alan Baldwin, gave him the man of the match. He could have been walking away from there with the match ball, but for the brilliance of the Hartlepool goalkeeper. And Tolaj hasn't gone off the ball at all. If you think back to the 2 or 3 times he was denied by Harrison Mayle, brilliantly in the 95th minute. The free kick. I haven't seen it back yet, the free kick at Hartlepool, but it looked absolutely amazing. And Jameson just went straight arm up and over the bar, whereas another week that flies in the top corner.
Yeah.
So, Dad, do you want to change your predictions for last 3, or are you going to remain strong under pressure from the mob that is the Aldershot fan base?
Well, a good friend of mine, not too far away, says you're an absolute idiot if you try and predict anything in this division. So I think I said I thought Gateshead would beat us, and actually there's a good chance that they could, because they are. And the reason I said that was because they're really talented. When they came to shots, they literally played shots off the pitch for periods of the game. They literally did. They kept the ball brilliantly, and ended up being goal behind in the end and drawing. But no, I think, I'd like to revise things. I mean, having been involved in sport a lot myself, I think there's so much about psychology in this. There's so much about, we look at the figures, don't we? And, incursions into the box and shots on target. Actually, a lot of it is how shots walk onto that pitch or run onto that pitch and what's in their head. I have a funny feeling that actually the defeat at Hartlepool might well have said, oh, well, that's it. But it relaxes you in the sense that you're not desperate any longer. I wonder if shots won't be desperate. I wonder if they'll be laser focused and just do what they need to do. Because what's gone wrong in recent games has been poor decision making, poor finishing, and just the luck of the rub of the green, to meet two goalkeepers who are absolutely brilliant. Whereas earlier in the season, like I said, a lot of things we hit went in. Tolaj, for example, would hit the ball and in the corner again, and he scored again. And Stokes one-on-one has been our best player, in on goal. He's been better than Tolaj and Daly or Kwame or Jack Barham. I mean, Jack could score a lot more one-on-one, actually. He doesn't score as many as he should. So I think, I'd like to think we'll beat Boreham Wood. And I'd like to think we go to Dagenham thinking if we win, we're still in the pot. So, I'd like to change my predictions and say I think we could still end up with 9 points or at least 7 points, a draw at Gateshead and 2 wins. Where would that put us? Really interesting to see. I'm excited to see, actually.
Just a final wish, really, from me, and that is that these results in midweek go positively. Obviously, perfect scenario would be a win at Gateshead, but maybe a draw at Gateshead. Maybe Halifax don't play or don't pick up any points on Wednesday, and then it's really bubbling for Saturday because the TV cameras at the EBB, and I don't want Saturday to be all about Luke Garrard leaving Boreham Wood and their tremendous comeback. Let there be still the opportunity for the TNT Sports to have what they picked that game for, a side battling for the playoffs against a side fighting for its lives. And, I want it to have that top billing and that top feel about it. And I desperately want there to be another 3,500, 4,000 in the EBB Stadium for what realistically will be our last home game of the season. I think we'd sit here probably comfortably, the three of us 2 weeks ago, and say that we've got a great chance of a home tie in the eliminators, but that's pretty much gone.
Yeah. And Rob, do you think, from your perspective, this has been the best season in a decade, say?
You can just literally wipe the floor with the last 4 or 5 years, can't you? They don't even compare. You do have to respectfully doff your cap to the Gary Waddock back-to-back playoff. They were within the last decade. They were 7 and 8 years ago or 6 and 7 years ago. So for me, it's hard to compare because whilst I was in and around the media box for those two playoffs, I was only just kind of cutting my teeth, really. Whereas I feel this year now, this season with 5, 6, 7 years of commentating under my belt, I've absolutely loved it. When you do any new job, when you first do it, you're kind of racked with tension and concentration and everything. And then when you do, and this is any job in life, by the way, not just commentary, when you've been doing it for 6 or 7 years, you can relax into it a little bit more. I've absolutely. So from my point of view, personally, yes, I have loved this season even more than those two Waddock playoff years. We probably had a little bit more experience and nous consistently through the team back then. Tommy's had a pretty good balance, but he has unfortunately been without some of his senior and more experienced players for big chunks. So Keith out for a long while, Macoma, near enough all season.
Definitely. Definitely over the last, I great respect to Gary Waddock, tip the hat to those two campaigns. But no, I think it's been fantastic. Loved it. And I think for a whole range of reasons, not just goals scored, but sort of drama, excitement, going to the game thinking, I'm really looking forward to so-and-so and so-and-so, or, playing against these guys. So no, definitely the best for me for a lot of years, probably since promotion year is 72, in terms of excitement, I would say, going to the last game at Stockport. So
you've trumped me there. Wow. Our first game was in 74.
Yeah, I remember it so well. I mean, that was Liam, for you, that was our first promotion as a professional football club, 1972. First time Shotts had ever been promoted from the Division 4 or Division 3 South, as it was. So, yeah.
I was going to nod with just, oh yeah, I understand. And then when he said 72 and 74, I was like, well, that was minus 20 for me. So I won't nod because I have no idea what went on that day.
All the Generation Z or Generation Z fans will have switched off by now. You realise, once I said that, they've all switched off. It's okay. We can talk about anything now.
Yeah, take it back to the glory days. I think, yeah, for me, definitely one of the most exciting seasons. I can't remember how old I would have been, Dad, when I was probably 10, 11, when we were actually in the league and we went into now League 2. Those were good times. But then I do remember a lot of bad years where we'd go over and we'd lose. And then I'd probably stop following them for a few months and then you drag me to another game. I don't remember enjoying a full season, let's put it that way. There was kind of peaks and troughs depending who was playing. And as everyone knows now, I love Danny Hilton. So when Danny Hilton scored, I don't know, maybe 3 a season, which is his average, I was loving it when I was there for that day that he scored a goal, because it didn't happen very often.
That's a bit harsh, Liam, given that he was the top scorer in the FA Cup one year. I think with about 8 goals in that competition alone, wasn't it, Howard? So we should really take Danny's corner on this one.
You'll be hearing from his lawyers, Liam. I can tell you.
Yeah, lawsuit coming my way. But I did love that era. But I think this season, I think the talent we have, the style of football, top manager, the followings we've taken to away games. If you just think about the numbers we've taken to away games, which is, I think, just tells you is a great barometer for how the club's doing. Do your fans actually travel? And we've kind of quite a few times had more fans than the home fans have had. So I think that's just a great barometer of where we're at. But I do think if we got 8, say we did get 8th and we didn't sneak past Halifax, would it still be a good season? I think it would be a great season. But I think most of the fan base would struggle to get over this last 6 weeks. So I think once the dust settles, nothing from now on is going to ruin it in my mind. But I think, yeah, Tommy and co might have a job to do if we do end up 8th. I just feel, people have been negative very quickly. And Rob, you've said that a few times. We're very bad at just remaining calm, having that drive down from Hartlepool, think it over, don't tweet straight away, don't hurl abuse at the players. We're not brilliant at that. So I'm hoping that we change that narrative and that's not the way it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just had a memory of when I came on the pod the first time. Do you remember, Howard? Liam asked us to predict where we'd finish, and you and I this is probably more pathetic than prophetic, but you and I were literally stuck between 7th and 8th back then. I mean, there's been a whole roller coaster since, but it's incredible. It's potentially coming down to that, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it is really, and that is quite remarkable. But in many ways, we are that team, aren't we? We've been outstanding and brilliant. But the defence, and we haven't sort of spoken there on this pod much about defence, but defensively, there's not many teams that get promoted or close to promoted when they concede nearly 80 goals. It's just too many, isn't it? You have to score 100. Probably 100 at the other end. Score 100 and concede 80 and see how it goes. So no, I think honestly, 8th is probably where we belong in terms of overall performance, but individually, it's a bit like a relationship, isn't it? You think there are high spots and low spots, but at the end of the day, it's here. I think that's probably where we could end up. But wouldn't it be wonderful to have a bash at those playoffs? That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, and this is really hard to say if you're an Aldershot fan, but I'm going to say it anyway because I do a pod that looks at the 3 divisions in the National League as a whole. I just think the National League playoffs, will be better if they have Aldershot in them. They'll be more exciting. Yeah. I think there'll be more goals, more entertainment. I've got absolutely no axe to grind with Halifax, and I completely respect that the way Chris Millington sets out his team, on a modest budget, by the way, is entirely his prerogative. But I am absolutely delighted that I'm an Aldershot Town fan and not a Halifax Town fan, because I have been entertained to the hilt this season.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny you say that, Rob, because I said exactly the same in a WhatsApp message to Liam this week after the Hartlepool game. That I think Halifax are stolid and pretty predictable and pretty well set up. And Chris Millington was an experienced defender, so I expect them to be tight. But actually, it's been so wonderful to see Shots go for it, and it's been gung ho at times, hasn't it?
And it's the it's the third battle between the two teams this season, and we've won the other two. Can we win this one? Can we finish above them? That's another thing that would feel a little bit of a shame, isn't it, if we just miss out on the playoffs to a team we've beaten twice.
My parting words on that were going to be that if you ask all the other teams in the playoffs, you ask the Barnets, the Bromleys, they would bite your hand off to play Halifax, I believe. And actually, Aldershot poses a threat. You could beat us 5-0, but we could also destroy you. So I think, it would be a real shame if Shots are not there. But if we just quickly throw it forward to the summer, Rob, keen to hear what you think. What do you think Tommy, Jamie, the team are going to be thinking in terms of targets for the summer, trying to keep, obviously, the core together? But would you already be thinking, there's a couple of spots here that we need to do something about, regardless of whether we go to the playoffs?
If I was them, yes, but I'm not. I'm a fan and I'm a commentator, so I'm wrapped up in the here and now, and I don't have to think ahead to what they would do. I mean, the biggest one for me, and we may not know, and this is what's really frustrating, Tolaj has another year. He loves it at Aldershot. Tommy has made him captain a few times. I think there's a real offensive initiative to try and get Laurent to stay. I think if I was one of the other players, I think the majority of them have enjoyed it and would like to be here again if they're offered another contract or if they've got another year. I definitely think players will be attracted to our club in the summer for so many reasons. It's on the up, a great fan base anyway, but, we've almost doubled our crowd over the last 3 or 4 games of the season. The way that Tommy approaches games, most players want to be in a team that goes for the win, not just shuts up shop. But I do think that maybe keeping the likes of Tolaj and Harfield, who are both contracted, to be fair, I think they will help to attract other players in. So I'm not sure if we'll know. I think we may have a very uncomfortable summer waiting and worrying to find out if someone comes in for Tolaj. I just kind of hope that if he is going to move on and someone does come in for him, the business is done early, because he'll bring in significant income if he goes, and that will give Tommy the opportunity to shop, if you like, cleverly, but in a different marketplace. Those are my main thoughts. I'm not one of these that has a player database of all the players that might be available and Aldershot should go and sign these 10, 12. There's plenty of other people on social media that do that. I draw the line at calling what I see in front of me. What about you, Howard? I don't know.
I think that's very fair, Rob. I think Tolaj is key, I think, going forward, because you're right. He's been given the captaincy, and that definitely is a mark of respect, but also a canny move, I think, from Tommy, just to boost him and give him that platform. I think it would be interesting, wouldn't it? Christian Makoma, when he's fit and well, would definitely bolster the defence, this year's defence. And I think the attraction of Shots would be those things you've mentioned. So why would I join from a League Two or EFL team? Yeah, probably because of this season. So hopefully we can piggyback on the back of this season. And I think midfield as well. I'd be surprised if he didn't recruit further in midfield, because obviously we'll lose Josh Stokes. But I think at times we've lacked a little bit in midfield. I don't quite know whether it's creativity or bullishness, but I think he'll strengthen in that area too. Elsewhere, we've got some great players. I think Ryan Glover, it's been a breakthrough year for him, playing nearly every game. We know about Harfield. I think Daly is definitely worth keeping. Haddy hasn't really had a chance yet, has he? And Barham definitely has shown that what he can do. So I think there's plenty of players that if they're kept, we've got the basis of a very strong team next year. We won't be ticketed to go down, whereas we were this year. People thought we'd go down this year, which is something, isn't it?
Yeah, I do have a slight thought on the defensive personnel, actually. For me personally, it's only played together 2 or 3 times, but I think our best back three has been Harfield, Minoga in the middle with his recovery pace, and Meneses. I don't know categorically the situation, but I think Meneses might be available in the summer. Hopefully he had enough of a taste of his during his time back at Aldershot to maybe come back for a third time. I don't really know how we've managed to have Haji Minoga for a season. I don't know why he's not good enough for Portsmouth squad. I think he's outstanding. I know he's picked up a knock at Hartlepool. We may or may not see him again for the rest of the season. But I love him, and I think the Shots fans love him. And I mean, surely not another loan spell from Portsmouth next year. But if they do release him, which I think they'd be foolish to do, I hope we're at the front of the queue for him.
Yeah. I concur with that, Rob. Absolutely. That Meneses was he brought a real solidity to the Shots back line, and I thought he brought something that we hadn't had before. And I've got a lot of respect for Cian Harris, but I'm not quite sure where he fits. Because he's not an out-and-out defender in the sense of, bullet headers and clearing on the line and stuff, is he? And he's not super quick, but he's incredibly creative in terms of his range of passing. And I think game intelligence is brilliant. Struggled a bit since he came back from injury and suspension, I thought. Not quite as effective. I
think he plays on the edge for me, Cian Harris. I think for big chunks of the season, he's got the balance right. He knew, he knew, especially earlier in the season, he knew when to just put his foot through it and when he got time to play. And he, as Tommy has kind of alluded to, Tommy likes players, whatever their position, that can play football. And Cian Harris can play football. He's a good footballer, isn't he? Do you remember he started the season in the left of the 3 centre-back positions? If you've got somebody like a Minoga with the recovery pace in the middle, maybe that's a better balanced position for Cian. Maybe he's not always perhaps the last man then. Obviously, Harfield's adapted superbly to that position, but Harfield can equally drop straight back into left wing-back position as well. And I guess overall, you'd like to think that we'd still have Harfield and Glover because as we speak today, I believe the votes are almost at an end. I think there might be a last opportunity to vote for the Supporters Player of the Season. I don't have any inside information, but I think it's undoubtedly between 4 players, and those 4 players are Glover, Harfield, Tolledge and Stokes. I guess, I don't know if it's meant to be part of this pod or not, but could I introduce an agenda item? Can we all pick our player of the season? It's really, really tough between Harfield and Tolledge for me, just. Tolledge, because of the goals and assists, it's so easy to go for him, isn't it? But I do love how consistent Ollie Harfield has been. And somehow I think there should be a reward for playing every minute of every game, which he's managed for us. So I am split down the middle. I'm going to sit on the fence. But if it's one of those two, I'll be delighted. Glover, his best season with us for sure. And Stokes, tremendous too. Absolutely outstanding in the first half of the season and pretty solid in the second, just maybe not hitting quite the same heights. So come on, guys.
I think you're right.
Nail your colours to the mast. Where are you going?
Here we go. Yeah, I think you're right, Rob. I think it's easy to just look at... We get distracted and we purr over goals and assists. And I think even in my mind, you always think, Stokes, Tolledge, you're constantly looking at them. But Harfield, he's been in a back line that's been very inconsistent as well. And it feels like he's been the pillar in there. We've had red cards, like they're going out of fashion. We've had injuries. The fact that we don't talk about him too much, but he gives you like a 7, 8, 9 out of 10 every week. And I think I'd rather that. So I'd love to see it go to Harfield, actually, despite, as you say, Tolledge and Stokes blasting in all those goals. I think I'd like it to be him. Dad?
Well, unlike you two, I've actually voted because I don't think either of you two have probably voted because I'm a real fan. No, that was a joke. No, I have voted and I've voted for Harfield. And I had no doubt, when the page is put in front of you, there's lots of names there. The squad's 24 or something, isn't it? I looked at Tolaj for a millisecond and then voted for Ollie Harfield for all the things you've said. And it's been great. So I hope one of those two gets it. If he doesn't, then I think Tolaj will. So there you go. I didn't vote for you, Liam. Sorry.
Yeah. Didn't make the list. Agreed. Well, after Rob's just put in that nice little finishing touch for us, Rob, we're actually going to finish now, but I'm not joking. This is the real cut-off, all right?
Okay.
Just so we're all aware. We've given you long enough. Rob, it has been great to catch up. Great insight as always. Thank you very much for just being honest and enjoy the remaining 3 games. We'll keep in touch and hopefully your heart pressure will be all right. You'll survive it. And we'll be talking about this in a positive light in a week and a half.
I hope so. And good luck to Bernard Chizzy and Alan Baldwin, who are commentating from Gateshead on Tuesday evening. They went into that game with a 100% record covering when I couldn't commentate. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Well, we shall miss your dulcet tones, Rob, from Gateshead.
You won't care if they win 1-0 or win any kind of win. So
no, we'll offer those other two a contract. We'll say, come on, commentate every week. Yeah, but thanks, Rob, for all your time, and we'll hopefully see you before the end of the season at the EBB. If not, we'll listen to you, and we really appreciate all that you've put into the club as well. Thank you.
Keep up the great work as well. Thanks for having me on. Absolutely loving the pod. Haven't missed one. Keep it up and good luck for next season. I hope you're going to keep it going.